The salt spray stings my face, a familiar kiss from a hostile ocean. For 5 years, this lighthouse has been my life, my prison, my sanctuary. The rhythmic sweep of the lamp, a mechanical heartbeat in the lonely expanse, is the only constant. The days bleed into one another, marked only by the changing tides and the shifting moods of the sea. Sometimes, she's a gentle lover, whispering sweet nothings against the stone walls. Other times, a raging beast, clawing at the tower, desperate to drag me down into her murky depths. I'm used to the sounds, the groan of the ancient gears, the mournful cry of gulls circling overhead, the relentless crash of waves against the rocks. I've learned to distinguish the subtle creaks and groans of the structure, the telltale signs of an approaching storm. I pride myself on my vigilance, my unwavering dedication to keeping that light burning bright, a beacon of hope for ships navigating these treacherous waters. I'm the sentinel. The solitude, well, that's a different beast altogether. Some men crack under the pressure of isolation. They see things, hear things that aren't there. I tell myself I'm stronger than that I'm made of sterner stuff. But lately, something's been off. A subtle dissonance in the symphony of the sea. A persistent hum beneath the familiar roar. I initially dismissed it as the wind whistling through a crack in the tower, or perhaps the echo of some distant freighter. But it's grown increasingly unsettling. A low, resonant drone that seems to vibrate not just in my ears, but in my very bones. It seems to emanate from below, from the very foundations of the lighthouse. Last night, it was worse. A distinct melody seemed to weave its way into the drone, a haunting, ethereal tune that prickled the hairs on the back of my neck. It was beautiful, undeniably so, a siren song that tugged at something deep within me. But it was also wrong. It stirred a primal fear, a sense of dread that settled heavy in my gut. I found myself staring out at the black expanse of the ocean, a cold sweat clinging to my skin. The light swept across the waves, offering no comfort, only highlighting the vast, unknowable darkness that surrounded me. I gripped the railing, knuckles white, and forced myself to focus on the rhythmic pulse of the lamp, on the unwavering beam that cut through the night. I told myself it was just the wind, just my imagination running wild in the solitude. But deep down, a seed of doubt had been planted. A chilling suspicion that something else was out there, something ancient and powerful, and that it was calling to me. The unsettling feeling persisted throughout the day. Every creak of the tower, every gust of wind, seemed to amplify the underlying dread. I busied myself with routine maintenance, scrubbing the lenses of the lamp, checking the oil levels, anything to keep my mind occupied. But the hum was always there, a constant reminder of the unsettling melody that had haunted my dreams. It seemed to be growing louder, more insistent, as if whatever was creating it was drawing closer. Or perhaps I was simply becoming more attuned to it, more susceptible to its influence. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe it was some strange acoustic phenomenon, the wind resonating in the underwater caves beneath the lighthouse. Or perhaps I was suffering from some form of sensory deprivation, my brain creating its own stimuli in the absence of external input. But the rational explanations felt increasingly hollow, unable to quell the growing sense of unease. I found myself compulsively checking the charts, searching for any anomalies, any uncharted reefs or currents that might explain the strange sounds. But there was nothing. Just the vast, empty ocean stretching out to the horizon. As dusk began to settle, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, the hum intensified. The melody returned, stronger and more distinct than before. It was no longer just a faint whisper, but a clear, resonant song that seemed to vibrate through the very structure of the lighthouse. It felt like an invitation, a plea for something that I couldn't quite understand. My head began to pound. I pressed my hands to my ears, desperate to block out the sound, but it was no use. It was inside me now, a part of me. The song seemed to be changing. The beauty was still there, but it was now laced with a subtle thread of desperation, a sense of urgency that sent a shiver down my spine. I thought I could almost make out words, faint whispers carried on the melody. But they were indistinct, garbled, just beyond the reach of my comprehension. What were they saying? What did they want? The questions swirled in my mind, fueling my growing paranoia. I knew, with a certainty that defied logic, that whatever was creating those sounds was not natural. And I knew that it wanted something from me. Panic clawed at my throat as the lighthouse began to groan in protest. Not from the ocean's wrath, but from the very foundations beneath me, as if something vast and powerful stirred from its slumber. That's when I saw it. A faint, ethereal glow emanating from the water surrounding the base of the lighthouse. A soft, pulsating light that seemed to pulse in time with the melody. It was coming from below, from the depths of the ocean. And it was getting brighter. I ran for the lamp room, desperate to reaffirm the light. It was then I heard it. Let us, free. The words echoed in my mind, clear and distinct, carried on the haunting melody. The hum intensified, vibrating through the tower, through my very being. I stumbled, clutching at the railing, fighting against the dizzying sensation. My vision blurred. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. I closed my eyes, struggling to regain control. But the song was relentless, pushing, probing, trying to break through my defenses. And I knew, with growing horror, that it was succeeding. The light, they wanted me to extinguish the light. To plunge the surrounding waters into darkness. To free them. But free them for what? What horrors lay beneath the waves, waiting to be unleashed upon the world? The fate of humanity rested on my shoulders. And I was losing the battle. I stumbled towards the lever that controlled the lamp. My hand trembled as I reached for it. The song was a deafening crescendo now, a symphony of desperation and longing. Images flashed through my mind, ships crashing against the rocks, lost souls drowning in the darkness, a world consumed by chaos. But then, another image appeared, a colossal, bioluminescent entity rising from the depths, its vast tentacles reaching out to grasp the sky. And I knew, with absolute certainty, that if I extinguished that light, I would be condemning the world to a fate worse than darkness. My fingers tightened around the lever. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, and held on with every ounce of will I could muster. I had to resist. I had to keep the light burning. But the song, it was getting stronger. I could feel it reaching into my mind, twisting my thoughts, eroding my resolve. The lighthouse shook violently, as if the creature below was straining against its prison. I could hear the grinding of stone, the splintering of wood. I'm losing it. Losing my mind. I'm no longer sure what is real and what is a hallucination. But I can't give in. Not yet. The grinding intensified, a bone-deep vibration that threatened to shake the very fillings from my teeth. Each shudder of the lighthouse brought a fresh wave of nausea, a sickening lurch in my stomach that mimicked the pull of the song. My grip on the lever was white-knuckled, the metal biting into my flesh. The song, it wasn't just a song anymore. It was a voice. A chorus of voices, whispering promises, threats, weaving a tapestry of seductive lies. They told me of peace, of escape from the endless loneliness of this tower. They told me of power, of dominion over the tides, over life and death. They told me I could be one of them. No, I gasped, the word barely audible above the cacophony. But it was enough. A momentary flicker of defiance, a tiny spark of resistance against the encroaching darkness. The chorus faltered, just for an instant, and in that instant, I heard something else. A different sound, almost drowned out by the monstrous symphony. A low, rhythmic thumping, like a giant heartbeat echoing from the abyss. It was getting closer. Panic seized me. This wasn't just about keeping the light on anymore. This was about survival. About preventing something unspeakable from breaching the surface. I had to find a way to strengthen the light, to reinforce its protective barrier. I remembered the old journals, crammed with the ramblings of past keepers. One mentioned an arcane ritual, a focusing lens of sorts, hidden somewhere within the lighthouse. Something about aligning celestial energies. It sounded insane, but I was out of options. I tore myself away from the lever, a wrenching act of will that felt like tearing my soul in two. The lighthouse groaned in protest, a sound like a dying wail. The chorus surged, angrier now, more demanding. I stumbled through the narrow corridors, the darkness pressing in on me, thick and suffocating. The rhythmic thumping grew louder, closer. I could feel it in my bones, a primal dread that paralyzed my limbs. I clawed my way up the spiral staircase, each step a monumental effort. The air grew colder, the smell of brine and decay intensified. I could hear the waves crashing against the base of the lighthouse, the sound a furious roar. But beneath the waves, something else was stirring. Something ancient and hungry. I reached the top of the stairs, the lamp room looming before me. The beam of light, though still burning, seemed weaker, flickering erratically. The voices were almost overwhelming now, a tidal wave of sound threatening to drown me. I squeezed my eyes shut, focusing on the image of my grandfather, a man of unwavering resolve, a man who had dedicated his life to protecting this light. I would not let him down. I scanned the room, my heart pounding against my ribs. The journal spoke of a hidden compartment, concealed behind a false panel near the lamp itself. I ran my hands along the cold metal casing, searching for a seam, a crack, anything that would betray its secret. The thumping was deafening now, shaking the very foundations of the lighthouse. I could feel the presence of the creature below, its immense power radiating outwards, a suffocating wave of malevolence. Finally, my fingers brushed against something, a slight indentation in the metal. I pressed down, and with a soft click, a section of the casing slid open, revealing a small, velvet-lined compartment. Inside, nestled amongst layers of faded silk, lay a crystalline lens, shaped like a teardrop. It pulsed with a faint, ethereal light. As I reached for it, a guttural roar echoed from below, shaking the lighthouse to its core. The beam of light flickered, then died, plunging the lamp room into darkness. The voices erupted in a triumphant chorus, a symphony of victory. I was alone. In the dark. With something monstrous rising from the depths. My hand froze inches from the lens. The sudden darkness was disorienting, the oppressive silence even more terrifying than the chorus of voices had been. All I could hear was the pounding of my own heart, the frantic rasp of my breath. I fumbled for my lighter, the small flame a pathetic beacon in the vast emptiness. The lens shimmered in the flickering light, its crystalline surface reflecting the flame in 1,000 tiny points. It felt cold to the touch, almost impossibly cold. I hesitated. The silence, it was unnatural. Too complete. As if the entire world was holding its breath, waiting. Waiting for something to happen. I knew, with chilling certainty, that whatever was down there was listening. Watching. Judging. A faint creak echoed from below, followed by a low, guttural growl that vibrated through the floorboards. It was getting closer. Rising. I had to act. Now. I grabbed the lens and held it up to the extinguished lamp. The crystals seemed to drink in the last vestiges of light, glowing with an increasing intensity. I could feel a strange energy flowing through me, a tingling sensation that spread from my fingertips to my toes. I closed my eyes, focusing on the image of the light, the unwavering beam that had protected this coastline for centuries. I poured all my will, all my hope, into the crystal, willing it to amplify the light, to banish the darkness. Suddenly, a blinding flash erupted from the lens, illuminating the lamp room in a searing white light. The roar from below turned into a shriek of pain, a sound so horrific that it made my blood run cold. The lighthouse shuddered violently, but this time, it was different. This time, it felt stronger. Reinforced. I opened my eyes, shielding them from the intense light. The lamp had reignited, its beam now brighter than ever, cutting through the darkness like a laser. The chorus of voices was gone, replaced by an oppressive silence. But the silence was different now. It was the silence of defeat. I stumbled to the window, my heart still pounding in my chest. The sea was churning, the waves crashing against the rocks with renewed fury. But there was no sign of the creature. No sign of the monstrous entity that had threatened to consume us all. Had I won? Was it over? Then, I saw it. A dark shape, just beneath the surface of the water. A colossal silhouette, barely visible in the blinding light. It was retreating. Slithering back into the depths. But as it descended, it turned, and for a fleeting moment, I saw its eyes. Two enormous, glowing orbs, filled with an ancient malice, an infinite hatred. And I knew, with a bone-chilling certainty, that it would be back. It was only a matter of time. And next time, the light might not be enough. As I strained to look deeper into the depths, I noticed a small, almost imperceptible change to the lighthouse structure itself. Some of the stone walls were damp, slicked over with a black, oily residue that seemed to pulse in the light. The black oil pulsed rhythmically on the walls, a sickening heartbeat in the deafening silence. I reached out a trembling hand, hesitating just inches from the slick surface. It looked like crude oil, but the way it glimmered, almost, breathed, suggested something far more sinister. A bead of the substance dripped from the wall, hitting the stone floor with a soft plink. The sound echoed unnaturally loud in the tower, each plink a hammer blow against my fraying sanity. I recoiled, wiping my hand on my already soaked trousers. This wasn't just a creature from the deep, it was infecting the lighthouse itself. The thought sent a fresh wave of terror washing over me. If the lighthouse fell, what hope did I, or anyone, have? My gaze darted around the room, trying to assess the damage. The oily residue wasn't everywhere, but it was spreading, tendrils creeping along the stone, seeking purchase. It was concentrated near the base of the lamp, as if the creature had been trying to siphon its power. The air, thick with the metallic tang of the lamp's electricity, also carried a faint, acrid scent, like burning rubber mixed with something indescribably rotten. My stomach churned. I had to do something. But what? Fire? The thought was immediately dismissed. The lamp was powered by oil, adding more fuel to the fire, quite literally, would only hasten our demise. Water? That seemed equally useless against something that thrived in the ocean. I was trapped, facing an enemy I didn't understand, with no weapons and dwindling options. Panic clawed at my throat. I fought it down, forcing myself to breathe deeply. I needed a plan, any plan. Think, damn it, think. My eyes fell on the maintenance locker, a small metal cabinet tucked away in a corner. Inside, I knew there were basic tools, cleaning supplies, maybe even a can of sealant. It was a long shot, but it was better than nothing. I crept towards the locker, my footsteps echoing eerily on the stone floor. Each creak and groan of the old structure sent shivers down my spine. I reached for the handle, my fingers slick with sweat. Just as I was about to open it, I heard it again. A whisper. Faint, almost imperceptible, but undeniably there. It seemed to be coming from inside the walls, a sibilant murmur that slithered into my ears and poisoned my mind. I strained to make out the words, but it was just a jumble of sounds, a cacophony of whispers that coalesced into a single, horrifying thought: join us. I stumbled back, my heart pounding in my chest. The whispers grew louder, more insistent, swirling around me like a vortex. The oily residue on the walls seemed to pulse faster, throbbing in time with the whispers. I clapped my hands over my ears, trying to block out the sound, but it was no use. It was inside my head, a malevolent presence that was trying to break me. My vision blurred, the lighthouse spinning around me. I sank to my knees, overwhelmed by fear and despair. Was this how it ended? Not with a bang, but with a whisper? I closed my eyes, waiting for the darkness to consume me. Then, a new sound cut through the whispers. A sharp, metallic clang. I opened my eyes. The maintenance locker. It had sprung open, the door swinging wildly on its hinges. Had I done that subconsciously? Or was something else at play here? The whispers seemed to subside a little, replaced by a new sense of anticipation. The lighthouse felt like it was holding its breath. Inside the locker, nestled among the wrenches and screwdrivers, was a small, tarnished silver locket. It wasn't something I'd ever seen before. Where had it come from? I hesitantly reached inside, my fingers brushing against the cool metal. The moment I touched it, a jolt of energy surged through me, and the whispers abruptly stopped. Silence descended once more, but this time, it felt different. It was a watchful silence, a silence pregnant with possibility. I closed my hand around the locket, its weight strangely comforting. What secrets did it hold? And how could it possibly help me survive the night? The locket felt strangely warm in my hand, radiating a faint, comforting heat. I opened it. Inside, nestled against faded velvet, was a miniature portrait of a woman with kind eyes and a determined jaw. She looked familiar, somehow, but I couldn't place her. An inscription was etched beneath the portrait in elegant script, *, Keeper of the Light. *. The words resonated deep within me, a flicker of hope igniting in the darkness. Keeper of the Light. Was this a clue? A message from the past? I flipped the locket over. On the back was another inscription, this one much simpler, *, Truth. *. Suddenly, the significance of the black oil struck me. It wasn't just a byproduct of the creature, it was a corruption, a deliberate attempt to obscure the truth, to poison the light. The light. The lighthouse. It wasn't just a warning beacon, it was a symbol. A symbol of hope, of guidance, of truth itself. And the creature wanted to extinguish it. That realization gave me a surge of adrenaline. I wasn't just fighting for my survival, I was fighting for something more. I had to protect the light, to preserve the truth. But how? I scanned the contents of the maintenance locker again, my eyes falling on a can of sealant. It was old and rusty, but still sealed. An idea began to form in my mind, a desperate plan born of desperation and a newfound sense of purpose. If the oil was a corruption, then perhaps sealing it off would slow its spread, buy me some time. I grabbed the can of sealant and a caulking gun. My hands trembled as I loaded the sealant into the gun, my heart pounding in my chest. This was it. A futile gesture, perhaps, but it was all I had. I started with the area around the base of the lamp, carefully applying the sealant to the cracks and crevices in the stone. The oily residue hissed and bubbled as the sealant made contact, a foul stench filling the air. The whispers returned, but they were weaker now, their malevolence diluted by the locket's warmth. As I worked, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. Not just by the creature in the depths, but by something else, something benevolent. The portrait in the locket seemed to glow faintly, its eyes filled with a quiet encouragement. Hours passed. I worked tirelessly, sealing every crack, every crevice, every inch of the wall that was tainted by the oil. My arms ached, my back screamed in protest, but I didn't stop. The light flickered, threatened to go out again, but I kept going, fueled by the locket's warmth and the memory of the woman in the portrait. Finally, as the first hint of dawn began to paint the eastern sky, I finished. The lighthouse was still standing, the light still shining. The black oil was contained, for now. But I knew it wasn't over. The creature was still out there, waiting. And I was running out of time. As the first ray of sun pierced the darkness, I heard a new sound from below, a slow, grating noise that vibrated through the entire structure, making the light sway precariously. It sounded as if something vast and ancient was waking up, ready to claw its way back into the world. The locket in my hand pulsed once, a warning flare against the coming storm. Whatever was about to happen, I had the feeling it was going to make all that had come before seem like a mere prelude. The grating noise intensified, a horrifying symphony of stone grinding against stone, amplified by the lighthouse's hollow core. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat against the rising crescendo of dread. The locket pulsed again, more urgently this time, burning against my skin like a brand. I clutched it tighter, drawing strength from the woman's ethereal gaze. "What do I do?" I whispered, the sound barely audible above the growing cacophony. The silence that followed was even more terrifying. The grinding stopped, leaving only the rhythmic whoosh of the waves against the base of the lighthouse and my own ragged breathing. It was the kind of silence that screamed, a silence pregnant with anticipation. Then, a single, deliberate thud resonated from the bottom of the staircase. It was followed by another, and another, each one heavier than the last, as if something massive was ascending. I backed away slowly, my eyes fixed on the trapdoor that led down to the lower levels. It was bolted shut, reinforced with iron, but I knew that wouldn't be enough. Nothing would be enough. I glanced around frantically, searching for anything I could use as a weapon. A wrench lay abandoned on a nearby toolbox. I grabbed it, my hand trembling so violently I almost dropped it. The thuds grew closer, louder, accompanied by a low, guttural growl that seemed to vibrate through my bones. The air grew thick and heavy, charged with a palpable sense of malice. I could feel its presence, a suffocating weight pressing down on me, stealing my breath. I pressed my back against the wall, the cold stone a meager comfort against the burning terror that consumed me. The trapdoor rattled violently, the iron bolts groaning under immense pressure. I closed my eyes, bracing myself for the inevitable. I thought of my family, of the life I was about to lose, of the woman in the locket, her unwavering gaze a silent promise of something beyond this nightmare. Suddenly, the growling stopped. The thud ceased. The only sound was the frantic pounding of my own heart. Had it given up? Was it playing some twisted game, toying with me before delivering the final blow? I didn't dare open my eyes. The silence stretched on, agonizingly long, punctuated only by the distant cry of a seagull. It was a false dawn, I knew. A momentary reprieve before the storm. Then, a new sound, faint but unmistakable, the scrape of metal against stone, coming from above. My eyes snapped open, darting upward. The light. It was trying to get to the light. I lurched forward, grabbing the lantern, my fingers fumbling with the mechanism. The creature, whatever it was, clearly needed the darkness. The light was my only weapon. I swung the lantern wildly, illuminating the spiral staircase that led to the lens room. Nothing. But the scraping continued, growing louder, closer. It was working its way up the outside of the lighthouse, scaling the stone walls like some grotesque insect. I could hear the rasp of its claws against the stone, the wet, sucking sound of its, whatever it was, adhering to the surface. I had to get to the lens room. I had to protect the light. With a surge of adrenaline, I ran towards the staircase, ignoring the agonizing pain in my legs and back. As I started to climb, I heard a deafening crack from below. The trapdoor splintered inward, the iron bolts snapping like twigs. The darkness below seemed to writhe and pulse, and a wave of foul, oily stench washed over me, almost knocking me off my feet. I didn't look back. I couldn't look back. I scrambled up the stairs, one hand gripping the railing, the other clutching the lantern, my lungs burning with each breath. The scraping above was almost deafening now. It was right above me, its shadow stretching across the ceiling, a grotesque silhouette against the faint morning light. I was trapped between two nightmares, caught in a vertical gauntlet of terror. The scraping stopped directly above, replaced by a low, guttural chuckle that dripped with malice. Then, a single, clawed hand crashed through the ceiling, inches from my face. I screamed, recoiling in horror. The hand, slick with black oil, clawed at the air, its touch promising unimaginable pain and corruption. I swung the wrench with all my might, connecting with a sickening crunch. The hand recoiled, and a roar of rage echoed through the lighthouse, shaking the entire structure to its foundations. I didn't wait to see what would happen next. I scrambled up the remaining stairs, my only thought to reach the lens room, to protect the light. I burst through the door, gasping for breath, my heart pounding in my chest. The lens room was bathed in the radiant glow of the Fresnel lens, the intricate prisms reflecting the morning light in a dazzling display of brilliance. For a moment, I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, I could survive this. But the moment was fleeting. From below, the sound of splintering wood and rending metal grew louder, closer. And from above, the scraping resumed, accompanied by a renewed chorus of guttural growls and sickening chuckles. I was surrounded. Trapped. The woman in the locket seemed to glow brighter, her eyes filled with a sorrowful understanding. The light, my only weapon, might be my only salvation, or my final, blinding demise. As I readied the wrench, I noticed a small inscription on the side of the lens housing. It was a name, Eleanor. I had a feeling that name was about to become very important. A sharp crack from above as a part of the roof was torn away revealed a set of eyes, not of the creature I had imagined, but of a face I thought I recognized. It was the woman from the locket, but aged, corrupted by darkness, a leer plastered across her face. "You cannot win," she wheezed, her voice like nails on a chalkboard. "This light belongs to me." The creature below finally breached the lens room, its form vaguely humanoid but twisted and grotesque, its body slick with black oil, its eyes burning with malevolent glee. It lunged towards me, its claws outstretched, ready to tear me apart. I braced myself for the end, the locket burning against my chest, Eleanor's corrupted visage looming above, the creature's oily embrace drawing near. But then, the locket flared with an intensity one had never seen before, bathing the room in an ethereal light. A voice, clear and strong, echoed in my mind, "No. This light belongs to all." The corrupted Eleanor shrieked, recoiling from the brilliance. The creature below hesitated, its eyes narrowed in confusion. I didn't know what was happening, but I knew I had to seize the opportunity. With a roar, I charged towards the creature, the wrench raised high, ready to fight for my life, for the light, for the memory of the woman in the locket, the real Eleanor. What happens next is something I could never have predicted, something that would change everything I thought I knew about the lighthouse, the creatures, and the nature of good and evil. The light pulsed brighter and brighter, and I knew this was not just a fight for survival, but a battle for something far more important, the very soul of the lighthouse itself. Thank you for joining us on Oral Stories. The echoes of this tale will linger long after the credits roll. Remember, some fears are best left undisturbed. Until next time, stay safe, if you can.